Anambra State in the southeast of the country is preparing for a change of guard in its leadership as the March 17 swearing-in of Professor Chukwuma Soludo as the new governor gets closer. Millions of citizens there are preparing for a new dawn as they also analyze the challenges faced under the outgoing administration of Governor Willie Obiano. As a former central bank governor, it is expected that Soludo will lead the state on a path of progress, secure the lives of its people, and push the levers of development above the basics of governance in Nigeria. With the star-studded transition team already in place, he is having a grand vision of transforming Anambra into the Dubai of Nigeria. Now, Professor Soludo will be taking over from his predecessor, Governor Obiano, who is said to be another great achiever in terms of infrastructural development after building an airport, mega centers, and doing other revolution within the state. Now, how will this transition benefit the people of Anambra? What will be the focus of this new administration? How well has the Willie Obiano administration also performed under the All Progressives Grand Alliance government? Well, for more on this, I'm being joined by Atasie, who is the chairman of the Anambra State Economic Think Tank and more of like the chief economic advisor to the governor. And Atasie, I welcome you to the show. Let's talk about this transition. I mean, March 17 is just close by. We have 16 days just to go. There was a lot of anxiety during the elections, but eventually that election ended very well. And the people have gradually been preparing themselves to receive a new governor. What's the state of things apart from the star-studded team that we've seen the ABGA-led government putting in place to transit between both the outgoing ABGA governor and then the incoming ABGA governor?
Thank you, Sambo. As you would expect, it is same party transition. And so it's, in my opinion, going quite smoothly. The teams set up by the governor, of which I'm a member, secretary, the outgoing team, and the team set up by the new governor, incoming governor, have been working very well together under Obieze Kwesili and the SSG of the state. I can tell you that she has a copy of what she calls zero draft of the various committees, which will help get the new governor hit the ground running. And the SSG also has a copy of the report of the outgoing team, where we are also saying this is the 1,000 pages or whatever of what we have done in words, print, and picture. So if you ask me, this will be a very good example of how transition should be done. You run your term, you find a very capable successor, because it's very central to making sure your legacy is actually sustained. And then you support that successor, to do well. I've had the outgoing governor say, I want you to do better than myself. You will do better than myself. I have moved it up to this point, and I think it's like the law of, motion, or law of inertia. The more difficult thing is to start going. But when you start going, it is easier. So I think the state is in a state where it will go to the next level.
Yeah, we saw the outgoing governor actually still coming to Abuja here to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari himself and his wife to actually thank the APC-led federal government for providing some sort of support. How much support did the Obiano administration get, considering that he's in ABGA and the president is in APC, from the Muhammadu Buhari administration?
I think the president gave a lot of support from an economic point of view, even from a political point of view. I mean, during the second term elections, we recollect that the governor was challenged because some of his aides were removed, and he thought that was dangerous for his election because he had his plans. And then that didn't work out, and he got the president to intervene. And the president said, this guy is doing well, I will support him. I will support anybody who is doing well in this country. I think he is
irrespective of parties.
Irrespective of parties, and we saw it. I can tell you for free that he did support him to make sure, not by voting for him or campaigning for him, make sure he had a level playing ground for that particular election. That is one. But economically, you may know that Anambra has a lot of support from the federal government. I just mentioned one because we have only 30 minutes. The shoe industry in Anambra State, you know, the southeast is quite solid in shoe sector, has benefited from infrastructure from the federal government. So in my opinion, the state gets its rights regardless of the fact that it is not an APC state. The governor has maintained a very solid relationship with the key actors at the federal level.
Very interesting indeed. And then let's talk on some of the key economic issues. I mean, Anambra was previously known as a place where you had lots of security challenges. It was difficult for chief executive officers of the state to operate. I remember even one of the former governors was kidnapped and all of that. Let's talk about how the government was able to transit away from those security issues and all of that, and then help to build some infrastructural presence that, I mean, like the airport that the governor built is one that's been talked about. And then you also have this mega event center where I hear that that's where Chukwuma Soludo has chosen to actually be his swearing-in venue and all of that. How has this added to boost the economy of not just Anambra State but the southeast?
Thank you very much. You know, they say there's nothing like an overnight success, which means the result we have seen is the output of several things that happened perhaps before he became governor, the life he lived, the way he built himself up. He was the executive director of Fidelity Bank, and he knew that there was a style to madness. So he knew that there are ways you can create success, and there are ways not to create success. And one of those things that he believed in was the fact that he who fails to plan, plans to fail. In other words, the moment he got the call to come and contest to be the governor of Anambra, he quickly started putting his plans together. Indeed, he called me. I think that's why I'm here. He called me and said, Mark, Atasie, where are you? I said, I am in Lagos. He said, I need you in Oka next week, Friday. And I said to him, for what? He said, you know what it is for. I said, okay, forget it. Let's not go. He said, why shouldn't we go? I said, you've seen this person, that person, that person. You are not a politician. He said, well, my people want me, and I need you. So can we go? And that was it. That was 2013. And we got into Oka. My role was planning. So he who fails to plan, plans to be central to what he has achieved. And I'm going to try to explain it. The governor came in and said, I have a dream that people will come into Anambra State if they ever think about putting money in an investment. I'm going to create an environment that will allow both indigenes and non-indigenes to want to go into Anambra to establish. Because that environment will be secure. That environment will have a beautiful scenery. That environment will have good roads. That environment will have houses that are affordable but grand, etc., etc. So when you ask, how did he deal with the issues of security? It's because he had a plan before coming in. He looked at the fact that if he is unable to deal with that issue, that vision that he talked about will not materialize. Nobody wants to go and start a business in an environment that even the police were scared. In fact, before we came in, what I heard was that police had to put on some clothes over their uniform to actually cover up. So the long and short is he came in with a plan, and I had wanted your people to show that formula on the screen. That plan had three components. The first component is what he calls the results. He said, I want to start with the results. I want exports. I want GDP to grow. I want a lot of jobs for my people.
Yeah, and then so on, those were the plans. And a lot of people are judging him by what he has achieved now. And what are those concrete things that you think that will redefine the Obiano administration as he exits, and that the Chukwuma Soludo government can actually tap into, since it's one political party, and run with it to ensure that the state makes maximum use of the resources available to it?
Okay, so I'll break those things into three. And I'm not going to mention everything, just samples, because this is 8 years. The report we have is over 1,000 pages, so it's difficult to compress into 30 minutes. But number one will be the projects. The second part will be the institutions. And the third part will be his style, which the new man may not, take on, but it's one family. So it's good to communicate it, and everybody decides how to proceed. Now, in terms of results, you find that Anambra became known for exports. The reality is that you don't get rich selling to yourself.
Yeah, and what are the things that Anambra is exporting at the moment?
Okay.
And
so
apart from the vehicle plants that we have there and lots of, those private sector investments that we have.
Exactly. So Anambra exports vegetables, spices, yam, and things in the agricultural space that we have competitive advantage in doing today. Now, what he did was the moment we got in, he set up a team, I think 15-man team, made up of powerful experts in agronomy and all that, and said, I'm not an agriculture, but my blueprint says agric is my #1 economic pillar. Tell me how to do it. So in 6 weeks, they came up with an agric blueprint. He had his own economic blueprint, but now an agric blueprint developed by these persons. And that blueprint identified exports of agric products as a major requirement for the state to do well. And so their partners, so Tiger Foods is a big partner that works with them. There are two others who may not be as established as Tiger Food, but they help to aggregate the output of farms. Now, a key thing done was to make sure that there was certification of the farms and the farmers.
For it to be able to meet export quality.
To meet UK quality, American quality, and so that was done. That certification was done, and then these farmers were trained and supported with the right kind of seedlings and practices and monitoring. And then some other equipment were procured to enable the state be in a position to export. Now, let me tell you, the airport is a grand component of that export program. A key challenge for Nigerians to export is logistics, getting things out at the right time. When you want to export vegetables, they need to be fresh. So it's important that you don't have them locked into a log jam between Oka and Lagos. And so the airport is a key strategy that will help the vegetables as they get out of the farm, they get into the shelves in the United States, United Kingdom, or Asia.
All right, I've been told that we have to go on a short break, and when we come back, you continue this conversation. You're still watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Somna Sambo. Well, I still have Atasie, the chairman of the Anambra State Economic Think Tank here, and we've been discussing the transition between Professor Chukwuma Soludo and Governor Willie Obiano as the Anambra State people prepare for March 17, when they will be having a new governor. And Atasie, I would like to thank you for still being here with us. Let's talk about Anambra joining the League of Oil Producing States since last year and what that means. What are the few gains Governor Willie Obiano has been able to make from the resources available? And if you've started getting those resources, and how do you think this could help propel the Anambra economy ahead of the new governor, who is the one that will enjoy the sweat of the outgoing governor in fighting for the right to be among the oil-producing states?
Thank you, Sambo. So the truth is that the only way a government can get money to fund its programs is by having viable businesses within that state. The businesses pay salaries to staff and who pay payee, and they fund a lot of other things, cleaning, security levies, etc., etc. So to explain why the governor was very particular about, getting the state to become an oil-producing state, I will tell you that when we got in 2014, IGR was about 500 million naira. Today it's close to 3 billion naira a month. Okay. By the end of his first term, he had gotten close to 2 billion naira, and now, this is 3 billion. It's clear, therefore, that getting other businesses that haven't been inside the state to get in will be very useful. So one of those was oil producing. You remember he said, I am going to focus on economic development. I have 6 pillars to focus on. The first was agriculture. The second was trade and commerce. The fourth was industrialization. The fourth was oil and gas. Because he had, as we were going in that, Anambra had the largest basin of gas you can think about anywhere in Africa. He said, let's become one of those. So he set up a team, again, as usual, focused on that, led by a professor, forgotten his name. So he led the rest in that committee to come up with the strategies on how to advance the oil sector. One of them was becoming an oil-producing state. And they lobbied, I mean, it's not negative lobbying, positive lobbying, working with other key guys who are in the House of Assembly, Federal House and all that, from Anambra, who then got the attention of the federal government to check what the parameters would be, and got technical experts to provide those parameters. And eventually it was clear that the state had to become an oil-producing state, and that status has come in. We know the meaning of that, more IGR for the state.
And let's talk about several of those issues that we have seen coming out of this. The economic packages that the Anambra State governor has put in place is one that I want you to talk about. How have they been able to yield job creation, for example? I mean, as the government is transiting, one of the key things that people want to know is that how many jobs has the outgoing governor provided, and then how is the new government that is coming in, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, considering his pedigree? How do you think there has been a suitable foundation that's available for him to be able to, jump upon and then use it to expand the rate of job provision?
Thank you, Sambo. Number one, the more exports you get, the more people you keep employed. That's one. We raised over $3 billion worth of investments into the state through the agency called ANSIPA, Anambra State's Investment Promotion and Protection Agency, focused on protecting the state's interest in investment, PPPs, and attracting many more investors. So that clearly has created a lot of work. You have massive poultries, you have massive farms by Coscaries and the rest of them.
Yeah,
so
those are private sector investments.
Those are private sector investments that we attracted because the story was great. And they all said, I want to be part of this story.
I actually think the Anambra State government itself went into rice production and all of that. Isn't it?
No.
Oh, okay, no. Okay. So you just provided
facilitation.
Because at a point when that Coscaries farms was going on, I thought the governor was actually putting up a farm to
No. So what we did was we identified various parcels of land relevant to various types of agricultural produce that we found attractive. And that process led to a land bank. So when you come in, we are giving you state land, and therefore the state gets shares. So the state is actually a shareholder in several of such investments. And I think that gave people comfort that it's a shared relationship between the state and the private sector investor.
Okay, I won't allow you to go without talking about this issue of allegations, actually, that Governor Obiano was handed over a huge financial investment by the former governor too, Governor Peter Obi, about 75 billion naira. I want you to talk about how the governor was able to make do with all that investment that was handed over to him, and how much he's actually going to also give the incoming governor too. Okay.
The last part will be left for the Commissioner of Finance to handle. How much will be given out. But the first part is public information, so I can talk about it.
Yeah, I mean the 75 billion.
Now, there was money left because I was very involved. As the embedded consultant, that was the only person he knew when he was coming in. The rest were civil servants, alien to him. So I knew what was going on. The money left was 10 billion cash, available to run the state, 25 billion in bonds, euro bonds. It was in euro, but I'm talking of in naira now.
Yeah.
The other things left were Emenite roofing that was invested in 1960s.
Oh, interesting.
It's not cash. And a few other companies that were invested in this, over time. They were not cash. So the real cash was that 10 billion, which, by the way, there were already checks ready for that before the government was sworn in. And then this 25 billion, that was locked up and not available for spending. And the governor said that we pay salaries 25th of every month or thereabouts. And this was 17th of March, 2014. So he wasn't left. So that's one leg.
So there was
on
no
the asset side,
quantum of 75 billion naira.
No, there was
left.
nothing like that.
Oh,
on the asset side, he was left with that 10 billion plus another 25 billion in locked up. But because a balance sheet you leave for somebody. On the other side of the balance sheet, you had a lot of roads unfinished. Not bad. He will also leave roads unfinished. You had 6,000 staff just newly hired, not payrolled.
Wow.
He had to take care of those. And he had a few other liabilities that he had to take care of. It's a continuity. I don't think we should have had an issue around it. It's just that the calculations by the,
because the former governor is always talking about this anytime he finds his way during national conversations. I mean, the former governor.
Oh no. So it's the balance sheet. It's the balance sheet.
Yes. And then let's talk about how, what agenda do you think is being set for the new government of Professor Chukwuma Soludo as it's coming in? At least you would have handover notes. Yeah. What are some of the contents in the handover notes?
Yes, okay, so there are two parts. As an incoming governor, he already had a powerful blueprint. We have copies of it. We've seen it because I'm in the transition committee, and you know him. He would have his plans. But I noticed that those plans are, taking things to the next level. So I see a man who is trying to take the state to the next level, building on an existing platform. Between him and the governor, they've also built a 50-year plan. Governor asked that be done, and he chaired the committee. So that will give direction as to where things are going. So from his point of view, from his perspective, he has a plan. But from the state's current governor's point of view, I think we also identify things that he can take and say, these are my quick wins that he can run with, things that are nearly finished, just a little more, and you get it done, and you can commission it, because in government you need
to keep
in
terms of infrastructure.
In terms of infrastructure.
Just give us a few snapshots of some of those.
Okay, so there are some roads. I wouldn't be able to go into specifics of the roads. And there are some other projects like school projects that can actually be finished and commissioned.
Do you think that the governor will actually complete all this airport project and this other mega infrastructure before he exits on March 16th?
The airport is running.
Fully?
Fully.
Yes, we saw planes landing, but sometimes when airports are commissioned in Nigeria, you see that there are still some ancillary services that are yet to be fully, done. That's what I'm asking. Is everything actually ready in the airport? Not that when the new governor actually takes over, you see here that some projects are uncompleted within a project that is supposed to be deemed fully completed.
No, the airport is running. Everything that should make an airport function at international levels is running. Okay. Anything else that can be added, like it's an airport city that is being built. So there's no way I can stay here and say everything should be built, has been built. Okay. But can we land planes, fly them safely, meet all the FAN requirements?
And all of that.
Done and dusted. That is going on very well.
And I'm particular about that convention center.
The convention center, we are going to be on it, in it very soon.
Because that's where the inauguration is supposed to take place.
See, the thing about Obiano is when he started the airport, everybody told him it's too late. But he delivered it. The convention center, he says, is going to be live before he exists. And the few things required to make that happen are already being put in place.
All right. Mark Atasie, an economic advisor to Governor Willie Obiano, who is the outgoing governor of Anambra State. We must thank you so much for providing this economic insight and telling us how Anambra State is preparing to receive its new governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, on March 17th, 2022, which is just 16 days away.